Lord's Prayer is well known to us. We recite and pray this prayer every worship service. After the prayer of adoration, the people are all invited to pray the Lord's Prayer together. Many of us learned this prayer as children. Maybe one of the first things we learned to recite in Sunday school, this Lord's Prayer. I want to talk a little bit about the context of the prayer and this first part that talks about naming God as parent and asking that things be on earth as they are in heaven. In Luke's telling of the story of Jesus, he has just preached the Sermon on the Mount, where he has issued a series of blessings and woes. He's talked about how those who traditionally have been sufferers, those who traditionally have been materially poor and destitute, will be blessed. That those who have a lot will experience woe. And after this world-changing sermon, he goes to pray, all by himself. While he prays, there is a disciple who is observing him, who is watching what Jesus is doing, and noticing that after such a momentous act as the Sermon on the Mount, a momentous reorienting of the world that they were living in, a world that had traditionally believed that those who had a lot of stuff had it because God loved them more, and God blessed them more, and God heard their prayers more than those who didn't have much. This Sermon on the Mount was about a role reversal, about a telling of the first going to be last and the last first. And after this, he doesn't turn around and accept congratulations. He goes into isolation and into prayer, asking for God's peace and God's guidance. And the disciples, in the only thing that the Gospels record that they asked of him, they didn't ask him, how can we perform miracles? No. They didn't ask him, how can we turn water into wine? No. They didn't ask him, how can we walk on the water like you did? How can we face those who are trying to discredit us and outthink and out-argue them? No, they didn't ask him to teach them how to do that. The disciple asked, Master, teach us how to pray like you do. How to pray. Do you think about your prayer life today? The time you spend away from all of the other distractions in our lives, from all the busyness that occupies our minds. How much time do you pull away for isolation simply to pray? We mentioned during the announcement time that there's a sabbatical that our prayer warriors are taking. These are some active praying people. Am I right about that?
Right.
Oh, I know I'm right about that. Undergirding the church with their prayers. Holding up our leadership with their prayers. Praying for people whom they become aware of who are having challenging and difficult experiences in their lives. Being the heartbeat of this congregation. Because a church that has no folk who are regularly praying for it is surely dead, no matter what else it may be thinking it's doing. When your heart stops, that's it. But even they recognized and realized a time to come away from all of the activity, and to spend their time replenishing their souls with God. Jesus was replenishing his soul with God for all of the things that he had just done. And that's the thing the disciple asked him to show them how to do. After all of the work and all of the activity, after all of the challenges and all of the persevering despite persecution, how do we come back, oh Lord? How do we find again that center of peace and replenishment? How, after all of the work, we find the wellness? Teach us, O Lord, how to pray. It doesn't talk about specifics of the manner that Jesus prayed. Maybe he just sat in silence with God and let God speak to him. Is that how you pray? Do you just have your list of God do's and God don'ts? When that's done, you're done. There's something to silent prayer. To practice stillness. Nothing past your lips, but you receive God's speaking to you. Teach us, O Lord, how to pray. So after the request, teach us to pray as John has taught his disciples to pray. Your cousin, he's out here in this work too. He has some disciples. Teach us to pray as he is teaching his. So Jesus gives them words to recite as they address their needs to God. First line says, Our Father, who art in heaven. King James Version says, Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If you don't understand what was going on around them at the time, then you miss the fact that this was a prayer of resistance. A prayer of resistance to empire. A prayer that people living on occupied territory pray to challenge and disagree with their colonizers. Because what they were encouraged to do was to see Caesar as their father. And that the Roman Empire should be the place that they pledged their ultimate allegiance. So this first line, where Caesar not called Father, but God is, says who we're not bowing down to as much as who we are. That was something that could get you in trouble. But that is the prayer that Jesus taught them to pray. That when you follow not the ways of those who are oppressive. Do not lift them up above your allegiance to God. Don't bow down to golden images of them. Don't allow them to set the tone for your living and for your hope. Place your living and your hope on God. This holy parent that created you, that shepherds you, that cared for you, that planned your entry into the world even before anything was created. That is what you should place your hope in. The one in heaven, not the one on earth. The kingdom of God, not the kingdoms of this world. But why should we do that? How will it benefit us? Why do we claim this name above every name when refusing to follow the dictates of the culture can mean retaliation? Simply because God is love. God delights in us. God does not intend to take anything from us, but only to add to who we are and who we can be. God is the place where we find our true selves, among the one who made us fearfully and wonderfully, and imparted to us divinity in our DNA. God is love. Some portray God as angry and one who wants to punish, but in our theological understanding, in the Reformed tradition, we know that God is a God of love, a God of forgiveness, a God that permits us, even after we've fallen, to get back up and take God's hand. God is a holy parent. And then the second request is that it be on earth like it is in heaven. That somehow in the heavenly places there's a better life for those who go there. Scriptures say where the wicked cease from troubling and the weary are at rest, where we lay down our heavy burdens. We receive love from God, and we are reunited with those who have gone on ahead of us. To live in the world is to struggle, to be persecuted, misunderstood, and attacked. To live with less than we should have, less dignity, less housing, less food, less meaningful education. In a world where the physical world is being destroyed in the interest of profit. Well, we know none of those things are happening in the heavenly places. May it be on earth as it is in heaven. May the streets that we live in be like the streets of heaven. May the relationships we have with one another be like the relationships that people engaged with in the heavenly places. I'm looking forward to that transition. I want to sit down and have some conversation with Paul about some of the things he wrote. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I want to hear Mary sing the Magnificat about how when she received word that she was going to bear the Jesus child, she began to sing and said, "The Holy One knows my name, and blessed is he." I want to see my mama one more time. Anybody? I want to have one of her peach cobblers again, if I could. I want to dance with my Uncle Marcy. I want to see Alvin Ailey lead the dance troupe of Harlem in heaven. Whoa! And then while I'm engaged in all of these conversations and celebrations, suddenly I may hear someone calling my name. And then I'll get to see Jesus. And I'll get to talk with him face to face. Feel the love that he has for me. Have him talk to me about the mysteries and the ways of living, even beyond my physical body, that will make it so, like Teresa of Lisieux, who said, "After I die, a bouquet of roses shall be released upon the earth, and I'll spend my heaven blessing those still on earth." Oh, if only his kingdom would come on earth as it is in heaven. For on this earth the unloved will feel love. The hungry will be fed. The shivering will be warmed. Those who feel isolated and unimportant will be reminded of how important and loved they are. There will be none who will be hunted and persecuted because they're different. There won't be economic systems that increase the misery of the many to enrich the few. But it is on earth as it is in heaven. This is the kind of change that Jesus taught the disciples to pray for. The kind of change that Jesus taught the disciples to work for. The kind of state of being that churches were instituted to build for. Part of the problem we have now that churches have pretty much been integrated into the societies of injustice. That we don't teach people to resist anymore. We teach them to try to find a safer place in what is, as opposed to changing and resisting it into what shall be, because that is God's will for us. So there's an urgency of building, an urgency of building a space where people can actually experience the love of God now, that they can participate in the kingdom of God as they live in relationships with one another in the church, where the church unfortunately cannot offer them this experience. It may well have outlived its history. Is that why younger generations have decided this is not the place for them? Because they look and can't see a model of a community of resistance that loves and refuses to be a part of what is wrong in society? Do they see us fighting and bickering and falling out with one another in a way that isn't helpful to them? So they feel that perhaps they can find something on their own where these things are not helpful. That's the challenge of these things, where people are waiting to see who we are and what we are doing before they come among us, instead of assuming that everything will be all right. How can we show them that when they come among us, they will experience on earth as it is in heaven? How do we need to pray differently? How do we need to work differently? How do we need to exist in the community around the issues that people care about in a way that allows God's light to shine because we are there? That God's love is there because we are there. God's radical inclusion that leaves none out and values difference. That when others throw them away, we find and welcome them. These are the kinds of prayers that Jesus taught the disciples. They believed him. They listened to him. They went out into the world and they established churches, first in small gatherings in people's homes. Eventually that movement grew. And we are here today as a result of their work. And we are grateful unto them. What will preceding generations say of us? Well, they say that we heard the teachings, that we did obey, that we challenged the society to be better than it wanted to be. That we were willing to pay the cost of discipleship. That we continue the legacy of the blessed but beloved and the true. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy will be done. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen.